how much of your money story isn't even yours. In this empowering episode, I sit down with Chelsea Williams, also known as the Money Whisperer. Chelsea is a certified financial expert and founder of Money Mastery. Her journey began in a Walmart bathroom, discovering she was going to be a mom at the age of 20, and has since led her to help thousands of women rewrite their financial stories and create lasting wealth. If you're ready to step into your power, redefine your relationship with money, and heal what's really holding you back, this episode is for you. Welcome to the Manifestation and Money Podcast, the show where we tackle the taboo topics of money and manifestation. I'm your host, Jenny Schultz, former 9-to-5 grinder who ditched the status quo and went all in on creating a life I love. Yes, I use manifestation. Yes, I took action. And yes, I created a 7-figure net worth before turning 40. Every week, I'll bring you inspiring stories with money mavens and manifestation masters. From learning how to make more, save more, and grow your wealth to unlocking the power of manifesting your dream life. I am so excited to play in this space with you. Let's jump into creating a life you love. Welcome to the Manifestation and Money Podcast, Chelsea.
Hey.
Hey, I am so excited to have you on today, and I would love for you to share with the listeners just who you are and what your story is.
My story starts with a paradigm shift. It's what everything leading up to today really goes back to for me. And I think that for some of us to change our stories, we have to have that, right? Like it has to hurt bad enough. We're not really ready. Like we're uncomfortable in the uncomfortable until it hurts enough. And then we make a change. And that's where my origin story starts. And it is that I was 20 years old. I was in a bathroom stall at Walmart, and I was looking down at a pregnancy test that told me I was going to be a mother. Up until that point, I was miserable. I had no hope. I had no drive. I had no belief in myself. I had no momentum. I had no why. I had really nothing to live for, if I'm being honest. But in that moment, everything in my consciousness changed that ultimately led me to where I am today. And so because I wanted to be an example of my daughter of, look, this is everything I went through, some of the worst things you can imagine. If I can get through this, you can get through this too. You can do this life and love the life that you live. And that was what I wanted to be able to tell her 10 years from that moment. And so knowing I had to do something different with my life, I ended up going to college, accidentally discovering accounting was a thing that people hate, come to find out. Most people hate. But I was really good at it. So I'm like, okay, if your brain clicks with this, maybe you should really hone in on this skill. And I trusted the journey. And for me, that journey was moving through a small business where I took over all of his accounting after one accounting class in college. And I succeeded and I excelled so much so that I got recruited to join a tax and accounting firm here where I live. I made vice president in 1 year. I was going to take it over, but instead I decided to start my own 100% virtual bookkeeping accounting firm back in 2017. And today that has evolved to me creating a sister company where I help individuals with getting a grip on their money and being a CFO coach to business owners across the country.
For you to say that you had a paradigm shift, and yeah, that can completely pivot the trajectory of your life, hey? Like in that moment. And you call yourself the Money Whisperer, right? So
Yes.
what does that title mean and how did it come to life for you?
So working with business owners and money, what I realized really quickly is that these are people. The way that they manage their personal finance is the same way that they manage their business finance. And so I have my personal interests and hobbies consist of psychology, neurobiology, quantum physics, all of these things that essentially really help me to attune to the person I'm talking to when I'm talking about finance. And so I developed this kind of intuition coupled with a framework of how to actually do it to where I can work with the person. I can recognize where they're at in their money mind journey, because the mind is often what keeps us from what it is we're trying to achieve. And it just became this superpower. And I'll be completely honest with your podcast and your listeners. I got the term money whisperer because do you remember that show, The Dog Whisperer?
100%.
On Animal Channel? I was always fascinated by it because I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy like speaks energetic dog. This is amazing. Like he just attunes to these dogs. And so it wasn't because I view the people I work with as dogs. That's why I don't particularly love that story. But it's more so because he had this innate ability to be in tune with these animals. And that really is what I feel I have the ability to do, is to really speak to the person behind the money, because the money isn't the problem. The money is reflecting the problem or the bottleneck or the issue or what's not working. And that goes back to the person.
And the person, and you said in there, the mindset. So is the mindset where you start with the people then on that wealth building journey?
I kind of take a reverse engineer approach to
Okay.
that journey. So people come to me because they want help with their money.
Mhm.
And what I give them is a framework that will work no matter where you're at or where you want to go. Because the beauty in money and numbers is that it's completely simple. There's one equation we are all living under. That's it. And a framework controls the thing, the tool, the money. When we apply this framework to our lives, we are going to run into struggles, abiding by and honoring that framework. And each of those struggles is an opportunity to dig deeper into the person, into the mind, into the core belief that is happening with that resistance to the framework.
Okay. Can you share an example of what that framework looks like, or a piece of it, just so the listeners can get a taste of what you mean by that?
So, part of the framework is a budget. And I know to a lot of people that's an icky word, but that's a perspective shift that I encourage you to embrace. A budget is actually freedom. When you know how much you can spend and where while still honoring your long-term goals to financial freedom, you have freedom within those boundaries. So I call a budget, these are your boundaries. These are your spending boundaries. And just like your personal boundaries, you have to honor them. You have to uphold them. They should be there. You should have and be intentional with your boundaries. Now, what can happen with a budget is sometimes we won't hold ourselves accountable to being aware of it, right? Or sometimes we'll spend more money on fun stuff than we know we should. And so we fall out of budget. And that's an opportunity to ask yourself, well, why couldn't you do without that thing? Or why did you spend it despite? Because the reality is you are only ever purchasing a feeling when you spend money, whether it's rent for peace of mind to have a roof over your head, or it's a Beyonce concert ticket. Everything in between is driven by an emotion that you are seeking. So if you deviate from your boundaries, what we're really trying to do is drill down to which emotion were you chasing here? And let's heal it instead of put a Band-Aid over it with money.
Wow, that's a really fun way of looking at a budget, as a boundary. Because yes, that's exactly what it is. So you take that framework of the budget, and then when your client comes back to you and says, okay, I went over budget here, here, and here, that's when you dig into the why behind them doing that.
Yep.
Okay. And where do you find our leaky spots? Like, does it vary, or is there a common ground where we all kind of like to bend the rules on the boundary of our budget?
One of the biggest and understandably so areas in a budget that we can go over on are our kids. Spending money on sports activities, extracurriculars, toys, entertainment. And it's understandable because as parents, a lot of us want to give our children this experience and create this world for them. But what we're forced to do when we have a budget to honor is we're forced to get creative. And that's really a beautiful place to be. And we don't want to put money in the place of creativity. And I think that instant gratification and all the different things we can spend our money on is actually hindering us from tapping into our creativity. Because kids just want you.
Yeah.
They love what they do, yes, but at the end of the day, the biggest investments you can give them is your attention and your time. And that could be doing something that doesn't require any money, and they're going to love it just the same.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that the truth? Like you think like even post Christmas and stuff, the gifts get it opened, there's that excitement buzz, but at the end of the day, they just want to snuggle with you on the couch and they just want that quality time together. So that's so true. And is that some of the things you talk to the people with then when you realize these things and talk about the alternative things that they could do instead of that thing that they bought? And that's where the
Yes.
creativity comes in.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because again, we're always chasing an emotion when we swipe that card, right? I worked with a gal who we put a budget in place and she loved to, shop that $5 item rack at Target when you first get in there. And she had great intention behind it. She loved buying gifts for other people. And so nothing that she was doing was wrong. In this world of money and financial freedom, right, wrong, and different, don't label yourself and don't allow anybody else to label you. The idea here is that your budget consists of boundaries that protect your future self and what you want for yourself in the future. So for this client in particular, she went over on, she had such a fun name for it too. It was like her bougie budget line that she just, gets to blow on the things that she loves to purchase. And so we started getting into a conversation around that, and we went what I call 3 layers deep. So if you ask and answer why 3 times, usually by the 3rd time, you get down to a core value. And what we discovered through conversation was that when she was little, her father abandoned her, and her mother didn't have the level of nurturing and connection that she was seeking. And so, in its place, her mother would buy her things to fill that. And, look, as parents, we're only doing the best we can do with what we have. No judgment, again, right, wrong, and different. But what she learned from that was what she was really seeking in those purchases was a sense of connection and belonging. And so what we talked about is how can you show your friends and your family that you love them and you're thinking about them and you care about them without spending money?
Yeah. So there you're almost touching on like subconscious belief. So that's in a sense that was instilled into her from a child, which created her own core value. So in your experience, how do subconscious beliefs impact somebody's ability to build and maintain wealth?
So much,
Yeah.
so much. So one of the things that I talk to everyone about that goes into our program is the fact that everybody has what they call an imprint period. And this has been studied, measured, and proven by science. So for any non-believers out there, science tends to help us make sense of things, right? Everybody goes through this imprint period from age 0, and we come out of it at about age 12. Now, you can think of it as that period, we are operating largely in our subconscious. We don't have awareness. We're not projecting onto the world who we are. We're a sponge taking everything and everyone in around us and trying to make sense about it. So if you think back to your childhood and you think about your experience directly and indirectly with money. For example, my dad worked really, really, really long, hard hours. I hardly ever saw him. I didn't directly tie that to money, but that's what he was doing. He was working to make money. So subconsciously, I took on the belief of you have to work really long, hard hours to make money the right way. But core beliefs, by the age of 12, when we step into consciousness and we start to project who we believe we are to the world, over 50% of our core beliefs and values are already solidified. And it's based on what we observed during that time frame. So a lot of people I work with, and some people take longer than others to kind of tie the pieces together, but a lot of people can say, oh my gosh, that's where I got that. This is what I'm struggling with. And we can tie it to a subconscious belief that goes all the way back to their imprint period.
Do you have any suggestions for people kind of to dig into that or discover them? Or does it take a third party eye to be like, hey, wait a second?
No, you can absolutely do this at home.
Okay.
I recommend journaling, and not just once. Keep coming back to it. Build on top of the things that you remember from your childhood. I mean, write down and answer the question, what did I experience? How did, if your mom and dad raised you, how did they make their money? How did I see that as a child? How often were they home? Did they talk about money? Was it an open conversation? Was it taboo? I work with a lot of people who were flat out told from that age and older, you're a woman, you don't need to know about money. That's not a thing you need to worry about in life. I mean, you just never know what you're going to uncover. And, write down the struggles that you're having around money right now today. And then think back to your childhood. Did I experience anything that could have led me to take this on as a fact when it's not? Because then that's the next step, right? Once you see what your struggles are with money and you have a better understanding of why or where that struggle originated from, now you're gifted the opportunity to change it.
Mm-hmm. And can we just touch on that comment you made in there about women not being part of the money conversation? Because I feel like this keeps showing up in my life and it just rubs. It's like, when you pet a cat backwards and you just can see they're like, what the heck are you doing to me? This is uncomfortable. But the amount of times that Chris and I have gone into appointments, legal appointments, financial appointments, and the conversation gets addressed to him. And he just keeps referring the conversation back to me. He's like, talk to her, talk to her. She's more than capable of having this conversation with you. It aggravates me so much to the point that we had to refinance a mortgage last month and the documents came through for us to DocuSign. My name was first. And I was like, for the first time, I feel like this lender in my eyes is now like up to here because I feel like I was respected, the person that was going back and forth, because by default, 99.9% of the time, the conversation is directed to Chris. And he noticed it too. And he's like, hey, you're first. This is a big deal because it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah. And this is a message. This is something that women need to hear. And the reason women need to hear this message is because we are about to experience the greatest exchange of wealth known to history. Over the next 20 years, it's projected that 38 trillion was the most recent number of wealth is going to be passed down. And a majority of the recipients are going to be women. And what you just described, I'm writing a book about this. It's scheduled to be finished at the end of this year. I'm super excited about it. But the whole purpose of the book is to empower women specifically around our money stories. And there's something that's really important for women to hear and understand. Just like each of us individually have this imprint period that leads to our core beliefs and values, women as a whole have an entire history of being left out of the conversation. We have only been allowed the opportunity to establish financial independence in the last 50 years. It's only been 50 years since women have even had that opportunity. Yeah. So the timeline of money, if that was our 100% timeline, women have only been part of the conversation for 1% of its life.
Wow.
And I say that to give women permission for not knowing and not understanding. Give yourself grace. In the scope of history, we have only dipped our toenail into this. And the amazing part is that in that 1%, if you zoom out enough, women have almost leveled the playing field in 1%. Like, we are doing amazing, and let that give women hope. Because the industry has to catch up. Just like financial advisors speak to men. Do you know how many decades they have been speaking to men? It's what they are trained to do. It's what they are conditioned to do. And so women's task now is to educate themselves. Learn what you did not know. You have every right to be confident, standing in your questions shamelessly, and navigating your own finances and protecting your own wealth. Because when this wealth transfer happens and money goes into the hands of women, there are so many studies that show money in the hands of women creates abundance for everyone. We are powerful with our money. And so it is our responsibility. We are writing the history book right now today in this podcast. This is the time for us to stand up and shine.
I get fun, like goosebumpy feelings from that. I want an equal platform. When I talk to my kids about money, I have a son and a daughter, I am talking to them equal. I'm empowering them both equal. There shouldn't be one piece of the relationship having that conversation. Or nowadays, there's so many people out there choosing to have families as a single parent too, right? So we need to level the playing field, and we all need to be able to have these conversations. And especially around money and finance, I feel as a human population, we struggle there as a whole. So to feel like we're all struggling there, and then as a woman to feel like you're being left out of those conversations or having to advocate for yourself to be a part of those conversations, yes, I'm excited to hear. So can we go dig a little bit deeper into what your book is going to be? I'm super curious about that.
We just started the process not too long ago, but my goal with the book is to share the history around why women deserve grace and understanding, and then also go into the financial education piece, how to take control of that money, how to have conversations like you just said, and be aware of what are you going to see, how can we prepare for that. And some of it is going to be the 3 layers of why, doing the inner work, because we are subject to those limiting beliefs just like anybody else, and we have to do the work just like anybody else. So the ultimate goal of the book is to empower and educate women to get themselves positioned, because when this opportunity comes, we got to do right by it.
I love that. The more guests I have on this podcast, and I have some amazing men. Like I said, I'm all about hearing the voice of all, but the empowering females that are coming on here that are getting so strong in their voice and are just standing up. I feel like every time I chat with one of you, the people listening also get raised up with it, right? There's just that sense of possibility and that sense of connection that you're like, okay, she's doing this, I can do this too. So that's really, really fun to see. And so I want to know, for you personally, what are some practices that you use to stay aligned with your abundance and your purpose here?
Yeah, so much like you and Chris, you in your guys' story, you communicate how you first of all figured out what's important to you, really, outside of the money. What are our priorities in life? And then you aligned your financial plan around that. And so I do the same thing. I have a planner that I look at daily. I always keep that in the forefront. What is important to me? How does that show up on my calendar? How does that show up in my budget? And I align my spending with my priorities. I also automate as much as possible. Automation is amazing. And it keeps us from the stress of having to be conscious that we're paying a bill. If we just plan for it, we don't have to worry about it. So automation is key, and not even just in paying bills, but when you're looking at investing or saving, all of my systems and the framework in my course lean towards automation, and also giving yourself the grace to adjust it. Things can change, priorities can change, plans can change. And so stay on top of that vision and just stay in tune with it. That's part of manifesting, right? Is envisioning it and planning it and establishing the boundaries and taking the action.
Yeah, 100%. That's so true. What is the one thing you hope women take away from your message about money?
That you are writing a page in history today. And I empower you to grab hold of it. Do not be ashamed around what you don't know. It is 100% learnable. And position yourself, because things are about to really start happening. And you're a key piece.
I love that. And my favorite wrap-up question of the show, what is one piece of advice that you have for people who want to go out there and create financial freedom and a life that they love?
Embrace outside of the box.
Okay, so there's that creativity piece coming back in.
Yes. Yes, get creative. Don't doubt yourself. Know that there are way more opportunities out here for you than you see if you only just go looking.
That is so true. So where can listeners connect with you, learn more about your work, and stay updated on your upcoming book?
Yes, so our website is moneymastery.work, where you can subscribe for updates. And I also have a podcast called Always and Never About Money that you're welcome to check out.
Oh, yes. We will be checking it out, won't we, listeners? All right. I will link all of that in the show notes. And thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Chelsea.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Manifestation and Money podcast. If today's conversation lit a spark in you and you're craving a space to go deeper with your vision, to actually live what you are manifesting, I want to invite you into something really special. It's called the Manifestation Playground. a high-vibe monthly membership where you get to experiment with manifestation techniques, connect in intimate pods of like-minded people, and receive direct mentorship from me twice a month inside our cozy Zoom room. This is where your dream life stops living in your journal and starts showing up in your reality. Vision, energy, accountability, it's all happening inside the Manifestation Playground, and your group might be forming right now. Just head to www.manifestationplayground.ca or click on the link in the show notes to learn more and save your seat. And remember, your vision isn't random. It is your future waiting for you to believe in it. I'll see you next time, or inside the playground.